How's it going, laser bruisers up? I'll be Sixkilla, welcome back to the Zodiac Trial. We're working our way through the Zodiac bid still, and it is not going as smoothly as we hoped, which is not surprising. Apparently there's going to be a traitor. Apparently there is a traitor, and he's already ruining our plans, so I don't know what to tell you. At the same time, we're trying to figure out the truth behind the case. It almost seems, after talking to everyone, like everybody's involved. Everybody's in on it, except us. And they're all playing their little part. And it's like a hot fuzz type conspiracy. Who knows? And like that, the group began to scatter. But now we were directionless. We didn't have a plan. People were beginning to panic. Panic was beginning to spread. And that was the cat's true goal, wasn't it? Still, something about the results being shown seemed wrong to me. I decided to try pacing on the first floor. It always helped me focus. I walked around the whole area, focused on the results. What was wrong with them? What was rubbing me the wrong way? Despite concentrating quite a bit, I couldn't come up with it. I decided to look for Ox. He was a good person to bounce ideas off of. After a bit of a search, I found Ox sitting in a classroom on the second floor. So, have you thought enough? I doubt I'll be able to think enough given the few hours, much less a few minutes. Basically, the issue is I keep running into the fact that we don't know who the traitor is. It also looks like the traitor intends to sink us no matter the cost. If you also factor in the fact that Snake's theory about the cat relaying the right moves to the traitor, and combine it with the fact that the cat is specifically sending us the cards needed to mess with us, the possibility of a no-winner situation is a lot more likely than I'd like to admit. I think the best course of action is to, as I said, focus solely on checking each other. This will make it incredibly difficult for the traitor to do much of anything. As the rounds go on, there will be a lot more and more cards on the communal table. Eventually they'll only be adding 2 cards at a time. We'll regroup and try to come up with a better plan. I think that's a pretty reasonable idea. I think so too. But I don't feel particularly great about it. Yeah, I can see that. So, do you think... To be honest, I don't quite know what I planned on asking Ox. My train of thought was interrupted when I heard a loud scream. The scream of a woman. It came from a nearby classroom, somewhere on the same floor. Immediately, Ox and I ran out to try and identify the source of the noise. On the second floor, we saw Bunny and Monkey also running out from the nearby library. We didn't have time to talk, we just made our way there, where the noise came from. To the classroom where Dog's exploded body lay. Ox tried to push open the door, but something was blocking the way. He shoved on the door again, and it made but an inch's progress. Just then, Bunny and Ox moved out of the way and began to shove on the door. With Bunny's efforts, it began to crack open. It appeared the door was blocked off by the bookshelf I'd seen in the room earlier. Once there was enough room to enter, Bunny made his way in, as did the rest of us. Entering, we were immediately struck with the realization that this place was pitch black. Not just lights off black, but pitch black. As the group slowly, blindly made our way into the room, I suddenly felt a body crashing into mine. I fell on the floor and landed squarely on my ass. Ow! By the commotion, it sounded like I wasn't the only person knocked into. In this commotion, we heard the door slam shut. What the hell? Just as I was getting to my feet, the lights turned on. It appeared Ox had found the light switch by blindly patting on the wall. Once the light was on, Bunny ran over to the door. He tried to open, but struggled to get it open. Damn it, someone's holding it shut. His determination to open the door was understandable. He wanted to see who had fled from the room, but it struck me as rather odd. After all, in the other corner of the room, Pig was lying dead in a chair right by Dog's computer. Her neck was slashed by some sort of bladed instrument. Blood was all over the place. Pig, no. How on earth? Why would... I was struggling to stay on my feet. Once again, someone who was alive but half an hour ago lay dead in front of my eyes. Not just dead, murdered. Finally, Bunny pried the door open. He made his way outside, and Monkey, Ox, and I immediately followed him. However, outside the room there was nobody to be seen. Then moments later, Tiger came running in from the left staircase. Hey, I heard commotion, what's going on? Right after that, Sheep ran in from the right staircase. I thought I heard a lot of shouting. Before long, everyone was gathered in the classroom. The gathering process had given me plenty of time to digest Pig's death, and it wasn't sitting right with me. It felt cold, like a stone sitting in the bottom of my stomach. She didn't deserve this. She didn't deserve this at all. And yet she died. Just like anyone might, she died. Murdered. By somebody. Likely somebody in this school. I hated this. I hated this. I hated this. No. Focus. Flip the switch. Let's go to the fear. Go off the fear. I shouldn't be scared. I should be angry. I should be livid. I should be determined to find the culprit. So, tell me if I'm getting this wrong. Mouse, ox, bunny, monkey all heard Pig scream out, probably from the whole being murdered thing. You ran over to the scene of the crime. You tried to get in, but the criminals knocked over this bookcase to buy time. But still, you make your way in, determined to catch them. Unfortunately, it's too dark to see anything. And in this darkness, the killer makes her escape, knocking into the lot of you. That appears to be the case, yes. It's so frustrating. We had them. And yet in the darkness, the chaos, they somehow got away. I don't deserve to call myself a cop. Don't say that like being a cop is some fucking badge of honor. Still, I must ask, what was Pig doing here? By the looks of it, she was sitting down to use the computer. Oh no, I asked her to hack it. But I should note that this is Dog's computer, not hers. And the murder didn't even happen when the computer should have been usable. No, I think I know what happened to her. You do? Pig said she was going to try and hack into one of those computers to try and help us all. I encouraged her. And here she is dead. Yeah, but if it was the mastermind, they would have just blown her up. Like they blew up Dog. This is my fault. Because of me, she went ahead and did something stupid. And now she's dead. Mouse, calm down. Remember to breathe. Listen to me, this isn't your fault. The only person at fault, the only possible person at fault is the killer. Not you. But then, if Pig was doing something that might expose the mastermind, doesn't that mean the person who killed Pig was the mastermind? I don't think that's possible. There are too many people in this school walking around. If they went inside, the chances that someone would stumble across them are pretty high. I just don't see them taking a risk. So the traitor. So then Pig's killer is one of us. But then, why would any of us kill Pig? We already discussed the possibility of a traitor, did we not? If Pig attempted something the mastermind would not like, it's reasonable to assume that a traitor may act on their behalf. No one knew what to say to that. It's truly tragic. If only I'd known what Pig was doing in this room when I tried to enter earlier, I wouldn't have left so early. But you came by here earlier, Snake? Yes, unfortunately the door was locked then. Locked? Do you mean it was blocked by a bookshelf? No, I mean it was locked. I can tell the difference. Oh. Anyways, after discovering that it was locked, I left the area. Eventually I ran into Bunny, who was interviewing Rooster in a classroom on the first floor. I can confirm that. Inspired by Mouse, I've been trying to get people's statements on various things, see if that'll help sort anything else. After Snake entered, I finished my interview with Rooster. I wandered for a bit, until I found Monkey reading a book in the library. Indeed, Bunny did catch me reading in the library. The two of us had an interesting chat from there, until we were interrupted by... Monkey didn't feel like saying anything beyond that. We could fill in the gaps ourselves. So, you know what that means? What? It means it wasn't me. After all, I was always with someone the entire round. Thus I am cleared of suspicion. Trust me, Rooster, no one thought you were behind this. Now hey, what is that supposed to mean? Are we done here? If so, I want to leave. I've no desire to be in a room with a murderer. You are a murderer, dipshit. Or a dead body. Yeah, this place stinks. And like that, one by one, everyone funneled out of the room. Until eventually, it was just Ox and I in the room. So it appears the group is not even going to attempt to solve this case. What do you expect? They're not a crime-solving team, they're a bunch of scared strangers who have a really high possibility of dying very soon. Suppose. But the only way we can certainly put an end to this is to stop the traitor. Ox, who do you even think the traitor is? Like, what are they getting out of it? It could be any number of things. Perhaps the traitor is being blackmailed. Maybe they're doing it for money. Maybe they're in league with our captor. Although in that last scenario, I'd have to try and figure out our captor's motive. Another rather significant mystery. You're right. Last time sucked, but I could get what the Jade Emperor was going for. It very clearly was a weird act of revenge as well as a really roundabout way of testing our characters. But this? It's as though it's being done for, I don't know, how else to see it other than it being done for fun. Some twisted psychopath's version of fun at any rate. You're not incorrect. Still, it's probably a waste of time to try and solve such big picture things. Instead, let's try to do what we can here. Do what we can, huh? Yeah, it seems about right. Pig. I didn't know you super well, but you seem decent. At the very least, I'm convinced you risked your life trying to save us all. It might not have worked out, but I won't let your death be in vain. So then, time to begin investigating. Where to investigate? How many more choices can there possibly be? I don't know, but it scares the crap out of me. The body. We couldn't do any investigation without examining a dead body, right? As disgusting as it was, I had to take a look. Sure enough, Pig's body was collapsed onto the seat facing toward the computer. The computer just had the same waiting screen all the computers did. If Pig had hacked this computer, it sure didn't show it. Her neck was slit with a bladed object, and she probably bled to death very quickly after that. Sitting on the desk next to the computer was that damn gold knife from Dog, covered in blood. So then Pig was killed with the golden knife. One would assume. Seems weird to me. Oh, and why's that? I mean, think about it, where'd they get the knife? From Dog's exploded body, I imagine. I mean, the explosion wasn't that big, it mostly affected the stomach. See, look, the bottom half of his legs are mostly fine. Surely the culprit could have gotten the knife from Dog's boot. Okay, first up, disgusting. Secondly, that's my point. Someone just grabs a knife from Dog's corpse, and Pig just keeps hacking away. She might not have noticed if she was focusing enough on her hacking. But wouldn't she just keep on obliviously hacking if anyone was in the room with her? I mean, we're on high alert, thinking the traitor was among us. It must have been someone Pig trusted. But it's Pig we're talking about. Given the situation, do you think there was anyone among us she would trust? I suppose not. In my opinion, from the state of the crime, I think the most likely situation is that the culprit walked into the room and slit Pig's neck without her even noticing. But that's why the weapon is messing with me. There's no way the killer could have collected it without Pig noticing. So then what are you saying? What does this mean? The killer took the weapon earlier. I think the killer must have taken the weapon from Dog at an earlier point. An earlier point? I suppose it's possible. But don't you think it's a little coincidental that the scene from which they stole the weapon just so happened to be where they were later murdered? This seemed a little too convenient. I mean, you're right, but I don't know. It was a confusing situation, but surely it means something, right? I tucked the information to the back of my mind and kept on going. The door? I decided to give the actual door to the room a look. The doorway was right by the western wall. Snake mentioned the room being locked earlier. After looking at it, sure enough, from the inside of the room, the door handle had a turnable lock on it. Weird. Really weird. I guess Snake was telling the truth. Probably, but doesn't that bring up a whole new set of problems? I mean, why bother with knocking over the bookshelf if the door already had a lock on it? Well, perhaps the killer didn't know about the room's lock. In that case, how'd the killer get in the room in the first place? I mean, right? If Pig locked the room to hide her hacking, which, you know, fair enough, then how did the killer get access? I don't know, Mouse. It's certainly odd. I kept looking at the door, looking for anything out of place, and that's when I saw it. Is this glue? Let me see. Ox moved closer to inspect what I was looking at. Sure enough, there seemed to be traces of glue on the side of the door and the inside of the doorway. This actually makes a certain amount of sense. There's surely a lot of glue around the skull. There might have been some in this very room. The killer was manually holding the door so Bunny couldn't open it. Then they'd be by the scene of the crime when they finally got it open. So instead, the killer must have glued the side of the door before fleeing to hold us off. Right. For once, something was adding up at the crime scene. Any glue I've used takes like 15 hours to dry, so none of the glue you can get around here would have been helpful. Unless you held the door for 15 hours. Just to be sure, I kept inspecting the door, looking for anything else out of place. I thought this was just a waste of time until I noticed something else. High up in the crack between the door and its hinges, I saw more traces of glue. And what would glue be doing up there? I suppose it could also be there to try and keep the door locked, but it's certainly not where one would typically apply glue. I made sure to take mental note of that. The bookshelf, I suppose. I decided to take a look at the bookshelf that had blocked our way earlier. It was still toppled on the floor, pushed away from the northern wall by the door opening. A bunch of books were piled on the floor next to it, and with all those books on the floor, I noticed something. This is weird. What's weird? All the books are out of the bookshelf. That tends to happen when it's shoved down and pushed away, Mouse. No, I mean all of the books have fallen out. I get spillage, but surely there'd be some books inside the bookshelf. But instead they're all on the floor around it. Huh, you're right. It's as though the books were thrown onto the floor before the bookcase toppled. Why would anyone do that? Most of the weight in a bookcase blocking a door would be in the books, not in the case. Don't ask me. We're noting oddities. I think I found something strange as well. Hit me with it. Looking at the marks on the floor, it appears that the bookcase was pushed toward the eastern wall before even being toppled. It was shoved down from where it initially stood, so it would have completely blocked off the doorway. Hell, it might have hit the western wall. But this bookcase was shoved away from the wall and then toppled over. Huh. Well, I can actually think of an explanation for that. As I said, If it was shoved where it was already standing, it could have impacted the western wall. If the bookcase was just leaning against the wall, it would have been a lot easier to shove out of the way. Maybe the culprit thought of that ahead of time and moved the bookshelf a bit before shoving it down. In fact, that might explain the books as well. With all the books out of the bookshelf, it would be a lot lighter and easier to move. If that was the case, the killer sure had their wits about them. To notice the bookshelf was too close to the wall and then to empty the bookshelf, just to move it slightly before shoving it over. Is that a reasonable explanation? Was that a reasonable sequence of events? I mean, it's not going to block the door well with no books in it. The windows definitely drew attention. The blinds were covering them, but it wasn't just that. The blinds were taped down onto the wall and to completely seal out all potential light. The duct tape used to do it was sitting conspicuously on a student's desk, so the killer taped down the window blinds. I guess they really didn't want us seeing them, which makes sense of course. But Ox, when did they have time to do this? I mean, there's two windows on the south wall there, and they're both taped up. After killing Pig, did the killer really have time for something like that? Well, it's not like we got to the scene instantly. Plus the door was blocked, so that surely bought us some time. So you're saying that the murder went something like, the killer slashes Pig, she cries out in pain, immediately the killer runs over to the bookshelf, topples it to buy time, grabs some duct tape and quickly tapes the blinds over the windows, finally then turns off the light and waits, presumably right as we're finally getting in. That's what the scene would suggest. Sure, but for the killer to immediately spring into action like that, it seems unbelievable. Well, we're not dealing with an amateur, that's for sure. Whoever the killer is, they're intelligent, determined, and dangerous. It's frightening to be sure. It sure is, Ox. It sure is. Well, I think that's about everything to look at here. I have to agree. So did you figure anything out? To be honest, I couldn't say that I did. But at the very least, I'd figured out that something wasn't right. This is just really exhausting. We don't have time to be exhausted, frankly. Sad but true. God, why does everything have to be so complicated? Well, let's try to keep things simple. Let's think about who could have messed with the tiger cuts. Horse and tiger, sheep and snake, rooster and monkey all couldn't have grabbed that spare cut, which leaves you, me, dragon, bunny and pig. So then the killer has to be someone from that list. That would be my assumption. In that case, let's try to narrow things down a bit more. Pig's the victim, so she's out. You, me, bunny and Nora were all accounted for when the murder occurred, so we're out. Which leaves dragon. You think dragon's the killer? It's certainly what logic would dictate. I couldn't argue with Ox's logic, but the idea that Dragon was behind this felt wrong. We'd spent quite some time locked up together at Dogs. Her to be behind something like this didn't sit well on my stomach. This is not her style at all. I don't know, Ox. We might be making some bad assumptions. We might be. Which is why we'll confront her in private about this next round. Although for now, we should probably get going. This round's certainly almost over. And I think we've gotten all we can from this place. Agreed. With that, we left the crime scene and made our way back to the computers. On the way, we passed by the library, which had its doors completely shut. Hey, the doors to the library weren't completely shut like this, were they? I turned around. Ox was right, they weren't. I don't like where this is going. Despite saying that, I immediately walked right over to the doors and opened them. Don't be a corpse, don't be a corpse, don't be a corpse. Damn it. Lying down, blood gushing from his neck, was the pitiful figure of Rooster. Damn it. This can't be. Another victim? Seriously? How long could this go on? How long until this nightmare would end? Another death, another... Hold on. Oh my god, he's not actually dead yet. You're right. Quickly, we need to stifle the bleeding. Spurred into action, I rushed towards Rooster's body. I looked around for something to use and saw a box of tissues. It wasn't ideal, but it would have to do. I immediately took tissues out with a dozen and began pushing them on Rooster's neck, trying to do something to stop the bleeding from the blood from completely leaking out. Ox ran in behind me with a tape dispenser. He taped the tissues I was pressing against Rooster to his neck. We used a copious amount of tape, to the point where it probably stopped mattering. After that... what else do we do? I don't know if there's anything else we can do. It's not like there's any serious medical supplies around here, or anyone with experience. Hopefully with this, he might not completely die before we get around. Although even that's optimistic. Once again, I could feel the weight of my heart. Even after trying to save him like this, Rooster would be... Quit it. Time was precious. Instead of moping, I looked around the scene. By the looks of things, Rooster had been stabbed twice in rapid succession on the left side of his neck. A bloody pen lay a few feet away from him. That must have been the makeshift weapon. The whole thing looked like a spur-of-the-moment conflict. Rooster was collapsed right next to a desk. I took a few steps back and looked around. A few feet away from the desk, a massive dictionary was left on the ground. I walked over and picked it up. It had quite a weight to it. Mouse, what are you doing? Investigating. Are you? Yeah, I am. Are you? That's... Ox, a murder happened right under our noses. We were in the room just by here and yet someone else ends up dead so close by. And this time, there isn't a clear motive. If we don't do something soon, we're all gonna die. Correct, people's lives are on the line. Which is why I'm asking why you're picking up a fucking book when a man is bleeding to death right there. It's not a book, it's a clue. Before we could argue anymore, the 2-minute warning alarm sounded. Looks like we don't have time to discuss anything more. Looks like it. Let's quickly handle that, then get everybody back here. Agreed. And like that, the two of us ran down the stairs and down the hallway. I was making my way to my classroom when I noticed something on the way Ox had noticed something earlier. I could have sworn that restroom door wasn't actually closed all the way before, but it was slightly propped open. I paused my jog for a quick diversion as I looked in. Immediately I knew where I wanted to check. If a restroom was used at this point, it would be for one reason. Sure enough, I could see traces of blood having been washed away in the sink. I didn't have time to register that though, I needed to get back to my classroom. The computer turned on pretty much right away when I entered the room. I already knew I was going to check Pig. However, as I moved my cursor to that button, I did a once-over of the community table. Mouse of clubs, Ox of clubs, Ox of diamonds, Tiger of clubs, Bunny of clubs, Bunny of diamonds, Dragon of clubs, Snake of hearts, Rooster of hearts, Rooster of clubs, Rooster of diamonds, Rooster of spades, Monkey of hearts, Monkey of clubs, Monkey of diamonds, Monkey of spades. That's checking everything. Wait, what? Before I could even double-check what I'd seen, my hand had already pressed the button to check Pig. The screen paused for a moment and displayed 0 cards. And like that, I was left with emptiness. No, not emptiness. Room. A single piece of evidence may only be a spark. But if you make a spark in a room full of gunpowder, you could really stir shit up. I remembered a conversation I had with my dad. I asked him how he built a defense for a client. It's a lot like playing dominoes. Dominoes? Yes, dominoes. Well, I can play dominoes. Well then, you might be a great defense lawyer someday. See, first you have the evidence discovery period. That's where you learn all of the facts of the case. You collect testimonies, evidence, expert opinions, every piece of information. Each one is a domino being placed. You don't really see it at first, but they're all a bunch of dominoes. And at some point, you're going to get a domino that wobbles. Something that doesn't make sense. You let that domino fall, and it's going to knock over another domino. And that one might knock over 2 more dominoes. You know that's not how you play dominoes. And if you've done your job right, and you've collected all the information you needed, and if your client is really innocent, you should end up knocking over all the dominoes in one fell swoop. I don't really get it. Ah, well, maybe I'm being too metaphorical about this. Basically, I don't really do a lot of work. That's not true. You work all the time. It's true I collect a lot of evidence, and I find a lot of laws to cite. But in terms of mounting a defense, I don't do a lot of work. I just keep an open mind, open and keen mind, and eventually the prosecution's case won't fit together. And once I think about what that contradiction means, it will naturally lead to another thing that doesn't make sense, and so on. I found that the truth has a way of getting out, like it or not. The only question is whether or not you're going to be receptive to the calls of the truth. It's good advice. That's right. I just need to be receptive to the truth. I collected so much information throughout all this, so many dominoes. It's impossible for so many things to happen without a pattern beginning to form. It's honestly kind of simple. First, I need to look at the parts that didn't make sense. Then I need to make them make sense. In order to make them make sense, I need to come up with some sort of answer. And if that answer made other things not make sense, I just need to repeat the process until all the dominoes had fallen down. Oh my god. Save. Did you see all that? I understand it all. Consider more hint. The rules of the Zodiac race. Oh no, I don't want to read that again. Okay, I've read all the information, and I'm not sure that I understand it all, like it seems to think that I should. But I'm ready to give it a go and see what happens. I had it. In real time, it had barely been a minute. I think I know enough about it to give it a good go. Whether I get it right first time, probably not. And yet with the speed of dominoes falling over, everything clicked into place. Why was I able to figure it all out so quickly? because in the back of my brain I already had most of the pieces. So I'll probably fail this time, and then we'll end the episode, and then next time we will come through and beat the shit out of this game. I just need to put them together. And I had. I walked out and saw Ox standing down the hall. Hey Ox, gather everyone and bring them to this classroom. What? Why? I thought we were going to deal with Dragon. Just do it. I'm settling things here and now. If you say so. Ox didn't look particularly enthused, but he complied and left to gather the audience. He'd see soon enough. For now, I need to get all the details straightened in my head. Presentation was critical. If I messed up even a bit, I'd lose the momentum of the crowd. And that was the one thing I couldn't lose. Soon enough, everyone had gathered. They'd also heard about Rooster. Here they are, Mouse. Mouse, what are you doing? Tiger looked entirely bewildered by the situation. Mouse, not to bump elbows or anything, but are you sure gathering everyone in one spot like this is such a good idea? Bunny, on the other hand, was incredibly nervous. Are we finally going to settle things? For some reason, Dragon was holding a metal baseball bat she'd found somewhere. Seems like it'll prove quite entertaining. A slight smile crept onto Snake's face. Have you figured something out? Is that a hopeful look in Sheep's eyes? I didn't have time for games. Horse never failed to intimidate with his large presence. We're all ears, Mouse. Please say what you need to. Monkey looked calm, maintaining eye contact with me. Okay, Monkey, I will. I took a deep breath, then turned to face away from everybody. So I'll be honest, I'm sick of this. Masterminds, traitors, mysteries, treachery. I think I've generally had enough deception for a lifetime. So let's just get rid of all that, shall we? Right now I'm going to make all the mysteries surrounding the past few weeks clear, one by one, starting with the identity of the person who killed both Pig and Rooster. That person isn't some mysterious third party, nor is it a resurrected dog. It's somebody in this very room. It's... Alright, I don't have to go through my thought process for you. I believe it's Tiger. I believe it's Tiger because I believe Tiger is the one who killed Amadeus Bowen. And I think that she's also the accomplice of the traitor, right? I think she killed... Because based on the way that the murder happened, the way it's all laid out, seems like Tiger's the only option. Because there was Snake on this side watching this door, and he could see the door of Bowen's office, right? Rooster was with her, but Rooster had to go and throw up or crap or whatever he had to do, so he left her alone, on her own. Sure, she couldn't come out and go through the door, but they said that the balconies, only someone athletic could get from balcony to balcony and get in. So that fits Tiger. They said only Tiger or Horse. And Horse weren't there. Horse was there that morning. And Tiger's already had a past of killing. Her and Horse are the only ones who, as far as I can tell, killed anyone. So yeah, Tiger. That's my belief. I probably got it wrong. That's let me finish. The room stayed silent. I still had control. Do you want to know the reason why this person killed those two? It's simple. Because they're the traitor. They did it because they're the game's traitor. In other words, they're in league with the cat, the mastermind. And I also know the mastermind's identity. I believe the mastermind is... Oliver Bowen? No, I believe it's Brian Morris. That's why it's a hack job. Like the last one wasn't Brian Morris, it was that third party telling Brian Morris what to do. This one is all Brian Morris, right? The mastermind of this game is the same as last time. It's one presumed dead Brian Morris. I realise that's a weighty claim, but to understand everything, you also need to understand where this all started. You need to understand the truth of Amadeus Bowen's murder. There's something we've been missing about it. Somebody we've been missing. All of this stuff. Well, the real killer and a third party. Let's go with a third party. The reason this incident has been so confusing is the assumption that there was a single malicious party involved in Bowen's murder. In truth, other than Aaron Morris, there was an entirely separate person involved in the incident with their own agenda. One Mr. X. I suppose the question is, who is Mr. X? Well, I'll tell you. Oh, fuck. Oh, there's too much information. I can't even. Oh, let's go with Oliver Bowen. That wouldn't surprise me. It was the chief of police, Oliver Bowen. Now, I'll explain how this fits together. The room was oddly silent, They were all stunned by my brilliant deductions? Were they all stunned by my brilliant deductions? I turned back around to find the room was empty. What? Hey everybody, where'd you all go? Oh no, I wasn't done putting everything together. Was it not convincing enough? Was I wrong somehow? Or I could think more of it. I felt my stomach start to get warm. Warm? The explosion reached my brain before the realization of what was coming. The Red Joker. There are infinite ways in the universe to fail. This is merely one. Cool. Thanks. Alright, we're going to wrap it up because we're out of time for today. But in the next one, hopefully we will figure out exactly what we're meant to do there. Till the day, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.